living with my bossy stepsister changed everything. When my dad remarried, I expected awkward dinners, stale small talk, and a quiet house. What I didn't expect was her. My stepsister. Blonde, slim, cute in a way that made you notice, but more than that, she was in charge. Not by title, not officially, but by presence. She moved through the house like she owned it. And maybe she did. She reorganized the kitchen while I unpacked, guiding my hands, correcting the placement of cups and utensils with a calm, precise authority. That's not where it goes. Here, she said, her tone light but commanding. I wanted to argue. I wanted to resist. But I didn't. Something about the way she looked at me told me I shouldn't. Then I found a note taped to my bedroom door, house rules. Every line was specific, what times I could use the bathroom, how I should leave my keys, where my shoes belonged. She watched me read it from the doorway, arms crossed, a small smile playing on her lips. And I realized I would follow them. Her bossiness wasn't loud. It was precise. She corrected how I stood in the hallway, how I leaned against the counter, even how I poured my coffee. Each correction came with a teasing smile, a tilt of her head, an unspoken challenge. Sit up straight, she said. One morning. You're tense. I found myself anticipating her instructions. I started noticing the subtle ways she marked her control, how she moved objects around just slightly, rearranged the living room furniture, watched my reaction to every adjustment. She would step closer when I faltered, close enough that I felt the heat of her presence. And I hated that I liked it. One evening, as I tried to focus on a book, she walked over and said, softly, "You shouldn't be so rigid. Relax." She gestured for me to lean back, and I realized this wasn't casual advice. It was an order. I obeyed, feeling a strange mixture of relief and tension. The game had begun. The next days were a series of small tests. She assigned me chores, but not ordinary ones. Tasks that forced me into her space, made me notice the way she moved, the way she watched, the way she expected precision. No, not like that, she corrected once, gently pressing my shoulders back into posture. Do it again. Her control was intoxicating. She would brush against my arm as she passed, linger close to adjust my collar, whisper instructions with a smile that left me unsettled, alert, and inexplicably aware of her presence. Every action was calculated, teasing, pushing boundaries. I began to understand why she acted this way. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't random. She was testing, measuring, seeing how I responded. And I found myself caught between wanting to resist and craving her guidance. One night, I finally asked, "Why do you do this? Why act like you own the house, and me?" She stepped closer, her smile calm and knowing. "Because you let me," she said. She explained that her bossiness was more than habit. It was fascination. She enjoyed structure, authority, watching how people responded to her control. Especially me. The attention, the obedience, the tension, it wasn't about the house. It was about us. I realized then that every rule, every instruction, every subtle touch, had been designed to create this feeling. A mixture of anticipation, frustration, and something deeper, something magnetic. The next morning, a new note appeared on my door. Not house rules. This one was labeled expectations. I opened it carefully, my pulse quickening. Every line promised new tests, new instructions, new ways to draw me into her control. And I knew, without a doubt, that the game had only just begun. I didn't confront her about the new list right away. I read it again and again instead. The expectations weren't outrageous, but they were deliberate. When to be in shared spaces. How quickly I was expected to respond when she called my name. How I was supposed to acknowledge her instructions. Each line felt less like a rule and more like an invitation. She noticed the change in me immediately. The hesitation. The way I waited for her approval before moving. One afternoon, she stopped me in the hallway and studied me in silence. Then she nodded once. "You're learning," she said, satisfied. From that point on, she escalated, not with force, but with confidence. She began giving instructions in front of others, casual enough to seem harmless, precise enough that I knew they were meant only for me. "Stand there. Wait. Not yet." And every time I followed through, her smile deepened, slow and knowing. Late one evening, she called me into the living room. No explanation. Just my name, spoken calmly. She had rearranged the furniture again, creating a narrow space in front of her. She gestured for me to stand there. Close. Too close. She circled once, like she was evaluating something she owned, then stopped in front of me. "You're tense again," she said quietly. "That means you're thinking instead of listening." She lifted her hand, not touching, just close enough that I felt the threat of it. "I don't need you distracted." I swallowed and nodded. That was enough for her. After that, the house felt different. Charged. Every shared moment carried weight. Every glance was a test. She would pause mid-sentence just to see if I filled the silence. She would step into my space and wait for me to adjust instead of moving herself. And every time I complied, she looked pleased, not excited, not rushed, just deeply, deliberately satisfied. One night, she stopped me outside my door. "Tomorrow," she said, "I'm going to see how well you handle pressure." Then she leaned in just enough to make her presence unavoidable and added, "Don't disappoint me." I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew, finally, that this wasn't about rules or authority anymore. It was about control. And the fact that I no longer wanted it to stop.